Imagine living 70, 80, or 90 years of quality health. What's the key word there? Quality, yes, well done, thank you. Imagine that type of life where you're not dependent upon any medication or surgery just to be able to get up and function every day. Who wants that? Yeah, we all do, right? We don't want to have to take meds every day. Imagine having a predictable level of health in the next 10, 20, or 30 years, where you'll know exactly what you'll be doing, loaded with energy and vitality, basically doing whatever you want, whenever you want, whether that be being an active mom or dad, traveling the world, hopefully, maybe, or maybe it's just being able to go out to a restaurant and not having to worry about, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to eat anything on the menu. Or maybe it's something as simple as just being able to pick up your grandkids, or being able to walk to the spa, right? Or being able to actually get through a night where you're not constantly worrying about your tummy rumbling so much that you're embarrassed. Right? We all want that, right? So basically it's being able to have true freedom. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Neil Thompson, and I'm a wellness expert, and I'm boldly stepping out to try and change the health system, because what we really have at the moment is sick care. And you're going to learn tonight the big difference between sick care and health care. We need both, all right? Don't get me wrong, we need sick care, but we need a lot of health care, all right? And there's not a lot of that happening at the moment, all right? So I'm going to share with you hopefully some encouraging tips for you to be able to get real breakthroughs, especially in your areas of digestive system problems, which I'm sure that is why the main reason why you're here tonight, but many other things as well. Now, the fact that you're here tonight means that you are all action takers. And guess what? Success is always reserved for the action taker. So let's imagine you've got two people. One of them knows everything about exercise, but the other one actually goes to the gym and exercises. Who do you think is going to get healthier? The second person, right? The person who takes action. So well done for getting here. You've taken the first step towards really making a difference to your health. And information and knowledge is the start of that, because that will inspire you and move you to action. Now, in the next hour or so, you're going to discover some of the most powerful, effective ways, natural ways of getting healthy and staying healthy. I'm going to share with you some information that's going to help you know how you can have better digestion, how you can develop more energy, reduce sickness, become pain-free, and dramatically reduce your chance of ever having to have surgery or developing a chronic illness like cancer, right, or autoimmune disease, or heart disease, or diabetes. And these are the diseases, the very diseases that are robbing people of quality of life. Okay, so let's get on to the nitty-gritty, so to speak. Digestion problems. What we're going to be focusing in on are really the big three: IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux or heartburn, celiac disease. All right, and we are going to touch on some others as well. Now, these are really symptoms. All those problems are symptoms, and symptoms are conditions or body signals that we get that's basically telling us something's wrong. Would you agree? Yeah, I mean, a symptom is telling us something's wrong. It's a body signal, you know, and we've got to learn to speak body to understand what our body's trying to tell us. And so when you're getting symptoms of IBS, acid reflux, heartburn, any other celiac disease, any digestive system problem, your body is trying to tell you that there's a problem, you need to make a change. And the question is are you listening? And how you interpret and respond to your body signals is what makes all the difference. So you've got a couple of options. Option one, you can realize there's a problem, there's tissue damage occurring, there's a stressor to my body that my body is not able to adapt effectively to. I'm going to need to change something in my lifestyle. And then you take action. So obviously that's the best option. I'm going to be teaching tonight how to do that. All right? Because it's great to say that's what you should do, but how do you do it? And we're going to show you how to do it. But option two might be, well, hopefully it'll just go away. Now let's be honest, I've been there before and I've done that, and it doesn't work so often, right? When you've got a problem and you just ignore it, what tends to happen? It gets worse, right? It doesn't just normally melt away. Okay. In fact, in healthcare, the 5 most dangerous words are maybe it will go away. All right? In healthcare, that's not a good plan. Okay? Very rarely does it. Normally gets worse. And then option 3 is, well, you can numb it and suppress it and mask it with drugs. All right? Now, when your body gives you a signal, a symptom, that is basically saying something's wrong, is that intelligent? Yeah, it's telling you there's a problem here, get it fixed. Don't just numb it or suppress it with drugs, which just masks the symptoms. All right? Would you agree that's probably not the best idea? Yes or no? Right? Absolutely. Okay, so tonight is all about getting to the root cause of your problems as opposed to just trying to give you symptomatic temporary relief. Would you agree that that's smarter than the latter? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So what do symptoms really say about your health? All of us are on this continuum. All right? We're either heading in this direction or we're heading in this direction. No one is static. All right? Your health is never static. It's either getting healthier or you getting sicker. You might not know it, but that is actually what's happening. All right? And obviously, to start to head in that direction, it starts first with awareness and education, which is why you're here tonight. So give yourself all a pat on the back. You've already made a step in the right direction. Well done. All right. But often, if you're heading in this direction, you're not going to feel any symptom initially until it actually gets quite bad. Because a sign, by definition, is something that a doctor will maybe detect, but it's something you can't feel. You can't feel if your blood pressure is elevated, can you? But obviously a doctor can measure your blood pressure, and that's a sign. It's not a symptom, okay? But by the time you actually develop a symptom, a headache, or in this case, some sort of bowel issue, already you're heading towards more tissue breakdown, sicker, and we know the end result of that. The question you must ask yourself is, what is your objective? Temporary symptom relief or regain full health and function? And if you really want to regain health and function, we need to start heading in this direction and move away from just the symptom treatment approach. So what do symptoms really tell us? This is what the science tells us about symptoms. When you look at the nervous system, there's sort of 3 main parts of the central nervous system. And the feeling part, the stuff you can feel, i.e. pain, discomfort, whatever it is, symptom, accounts for less than 10%. In fact, actually much less than 10%. So judging your health on how you look and feel, good idea or bad idea? Bad, because you could be 90% damaged with all wrong stuff going on here, and even a big chunk of this, but because you're not feeling any pain or actual discomfort, doesn't mean to say there's no problems. How about this? How many people do you know of who seem perfectly healthy one day and literally the next day they drop dead of a heart attack? Or have you heard of someone like that? It happens quite often, right? Well, Bill, you're saying he's dead from a heart attack? I just played golf with him yesterday and he played his best round and now you're saying he's dead. Does heart disease take just 12 hours to develop? No, it takes more like 20 years to develop. But can we feel our arteries slowly clogging up? We can't, okay? How many of you know of someone who's just gone in for a routine scan and they felt perfectly fine, they looked perfectly fine, and they were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and within 2 years they're dead? Again, it happens more often than we realize, doesn't it? So again, I ask you the question, judging our health and how we look or feel, good idea or bad idea? Okay, so we've got to agree that there's got to be a better way, right? There's this dangerous belief that drugs work. They don't correct the problem, they just mask the symptom of the problem. But it's big business. And you've got to understand how big business it is. In the UK alone, 13 billion pounds per year simply spent on drugs. 13 billion pounds per year. It's huge, huge business. In the States, it's even worse because they're even more medicated. And there's this dangerous belief that, well, I'm not into drugs. I get that. I don't want to go down the drug route. Hopefully, I'll just stick it out and hopefully it'll just go away. All right? But we know that that doesn't work well either. It always just gets worse. So there has to be a better premise. There has to be a better way of addressing some of these things. And we're going to first talk about some of the root causes as to why these problems develop in the first place. And it really boils down to this. Stress in the form of thoughts, toxins, and traumas, right? The 3 T's. How many of you would agree that modern life is unnaturally stressful and more stressful now than it was possibly 40 years ago? Yes, no? Yeah, absolutely. The pace of life is so much faster, isn't it? It's so much more competitive, so much more people, and information is flying around all over the place so fast. I mean, nowadays, you could probably do more in a day now than you used to be able to do in a week. So whilst technology has been great, makes things super efficient and fast, it just means we're cramming more in the day. And what's that doing to our nervous systems and our stress? Okay? All right. So let's start with some basic fundamentals about really what health is. Because if we don't get a better definition of health, because we know health is not just absence of symptoms. We've established that, right? Okay? Well, what is health? Well, firstly, healthy is normal. Which some people think, well, that's, well, yeah, obviously. But actually, if you think about it, there are now so many sick people, we actually think it's normal to get sick, at some point in your life. But actually, that's not normal. It's just because it's common doesn't mean to say it's normal. Your factory setting, your default setting, unless you have a true genetic problem, which is for less than 5% of the population. For the rest of us, 95% of people, healthy is normal. If you simply give the body what it needs and you remove what it doesn't need. It knows how to be healthy. That's the way we've been created and designed. That is your factory normal default setting. If you simply give a person what they need and you remove what they don't need, the body knows how to be healthy. But when we dump our bodies in these toxic, deficient, stressed environments, they adapt as best they can to that, but the ultimate end product is subpar health. Make sense? Your body is smart. We've established that it's good that you get symptoms when you're heading in the wrong direction. Because you want a wake-up call, hang on, I'm heading that direction, I need to be heading that direction. So symptoms, almost think of it like a fire alarm. If a fire alarm goes off, we don't just remove the batteries from the fire alarm, right? And that's basically what the drugs are doing. It's no different. We need to address the fire in the back, because if we don't, it's just going to get bigger. It's just the same with the iceberg picture. We don't just chip away at the top. We need to address what's underneath the water if we're going to make any real dent. Your nervous system is the master system. It controls everything. It controls your digestion, your immune system, your cardiovascular system, endocrine system, everything. All right? It controls everything. That's why all doctors now refer to the nervous system as the master system, no matter what type of doctor you are. And your spine is your suit of armor. It's the suit of armor that protects the nervous system. So your nervous system sits inside all the bones of your spinal column. And if the spine is all out of alignment and your posture is all out of whack, how well is your nervous system going to work? Pretty poor, right? Not great. Okay, is that rocket science? Is that really quite far-fetched? If I'm like this, do you think my spinal cord is going to be functioning top-notch? No, absolutely not. And depending upon which part of the spinal cord and nerves are being affected will determine what kind of organs and tissues are potentially being impacted. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. It's basic anatomy. Which is why when you come across some of these more elderly people and they're all like this, you're not surprised when they're taking 10 or 15 different meds a day. But when you come across an 85-year-old who's like this and he's playing 18 holes of golf, you're not surprised if he's not taking any medication. Because we know it makes a difference, absolutely. All right? And I think we can all agree that modern life is unnaturally stressful, and so unfortunately, all of that stress, physical, chemical, and emotional, hammers your nervous system and spine. And we've now just established that your nervous system controls everything, including, guess what, your digestion. Okay? So if your nervous system is not in a good state, how well do you think your digestion is going to go? Not so great, right? Okay, so do you think it's quite important then to assess your nervous system if you've got digestive system problems? Yes, and especially now as all the modern science tells us, your gut is really actually what they refer to as the third brain. Second brain, I suppose, is the spinal cord, because it's an extension of your brain, and the gut's the third brain, because it's the most innovative thing after the brain and spinal cord itself. Make sense? Okay, so it's hugely influenced by the state of your nervous system, which is why when people are stressed, one of the most common first things that happens is they start to get gut issues. Constipation, diarrhea, IBS, heartburn, and. Okay? All right. Now what stress does from a physiological point of view is it increases blood pressure, increases heart rate. So let's just say, for example, I'm from Africa. I love walking in these national parks where you had all these big five, elephant, rhino, lion, buffalo, leopard. And my dad and I, we were very lucky to be able to go on these walking safaris from a young age. And we used to go in these national parks. And back then you didn't have to have game wardens, and you could just go and walk. And provided they trusted you were going to be sensible. And we loved doing it. But occasionally you might come across a pride of lions in the distance and they'd stand up and start growling. And I think you can appreciate your heart rate's going to go up, right? Okay, your blood pressure's going to go up because it's a stress response. It's preparing you for a fight or a run, probably the latter. To be honest, I don't really rate either of your chances, right? You just don't get too close in the first place, but that's what it's trying to do. So it's going to increase your muscle tone. You get tense. That's why when you're stressed, you're all tense, okay? Your cholesterol also goes up. Why? Because cholesterol is essential in the manufacturing of stress hormone, cortisol and adrenaline. You need lots of cholesterol to make stress hormone. So those of you who are wondering why your cholesterol levels are up, it's because you're stressed. Not because you have some genetic disorder. It's because you're stressed. It's intelligent. Why does your body elevate cholesterol? Because it needs adrenaline and cortisol, because it thinks you're in a fight-flight situation. And the thing is your body doesn't know the difference between an actual threat, like a lion, versus a perceived threat, like a fight with your spouse or your boss. Or that email you get at 7 o'clock in the morning from your boss saying you've got to prepare this paper by 9 o'clock. Your body responds physiologically the same way. It's that fight-flight state. The difference is we might, as hunter-gatherers, which historically where we're from, might only come across a lion maybe once every 3 months, if you're unlucky, walking through the bush. But in the world we live in today, how many of you would agree that we come across our lions, our stresses, virtually every day? Okay? And so we're constantly stuck in this stress state. What cholesterol also does is it enables you to clot wounds really quickly. If you think about it, if a lion's trying to rip your head off, it's quite possible, it might not rip your head off, but it might rip your arm off, right? And you could bleed to death. So you need cholesterol to clot it quickly so you don't bleed to death. And so unfortunately what also happens, your clotting factors go up. And if you're exposed to that stress state for a long period of time, what do you think that does for heart disease and stroke? It increases the risk massively. Okay? Obviously you get fear and anxiety as well. Insulin sensitivity is downregulated. Why do you think so many people are now struggling with diabetes? Blood sugar up, immune response is downregulated. Your body doesn't care about white blood cells when you're fighting lions. Would you agree? Okay? Because white blood cells are not going to save you from a lion trying to rip your head off. So your body, though, has to down-regulate your immune system, which normally chews up a lot of energy, so that it has enough energy to get away from the lion. But remember, our lions are not physical lions, but our body responds physiologically the same way. So that's why so many people are getting sick, because we're stressed. Sex drive down-regulated. Well, I think everyone knows that things are worsening in that department, okay, for many couples. Decreased serotonin, depression on the up, sleep cycles interrupted. How many people here know their sleep is not great quality? Quick hands up. Yeah, 3/4 of you. And guess what also happens? Digestion, I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, chews up a lot of energy. And your body doesn't have enough energy to be in both fight, flight, and digestion mode at the same time. So guess what it's going to rather choose? Fight, flight, because that's important for your immediate survival. Unfortunately, though, if you're stuck in this cycle on an ongoing basis, digestion really suffers, and that can now create serious problems. So initially, your digestion speeds up ridiculously, which is why when you come across a line, you might literally wet your pants. Okay? Or should I say mess your pants. But in the long term, your digestion slows down. And that's why things like IBS, constipation are such big issues. Okay. But it also means you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients that you're eating. You could have the most amazing diet in the world, but you're not actually getting the benefits out of it because your nervous system's not balanced. You see, your nervous system has to be in healing, repair, digest mode in order for you to actually absorb all that good stuff that you're eating. Otherwise, it's going in one end and out the other. And that's important because there's a lot of people who just say, if you just exercise and eat well and think good thoughts, you're going to be healthy. Well, they're missing a massive foundational cornerstone here, and that is, well, you need a healthy nervous system for that to all really have an impact. Because if your nervous system's not functioning well, A, you're not going to digest and absorb food well and efficiently, but also, from an exercise point of view, that's when you're going to injure yourself because muscles aren't engaging when they should do because the nerves that are controlling the muscles aren't firing quickly enough or properly because the nervous system is not functioning efficiently. Okay. So the autonomic nervous system is that part of that nervous system that kind of is all the automatic parts that's going on behind the scenes without your conscious control. You're not sitting there thinking, okay, stomach, digest the food, okay? That's what the autonomic nervous system is. But when you say bend arm, you have an active control of that. That is a different part of the nervous system. But the autonomic part, which is the part that really controls all your organs and a lot of your health, that really is the part that is influenced heavily by the fight-flight state. Okay, so we really want to be in this state 80% of the time, and only this state at most 20% of the time. But for most of us, we're there 80% and only there 20%. Would you agree? Yeah, okay. And that's why we've got all these issues. And it all creates all these stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol. Now, when you look at your actual nerve supply, the brain is constantly sending messages down through your spinal cord, out through all these nerves to all your different organs, right, as you can see over there. If I suddenly cut this nerve to the heart, how well do you think the heart's going to work? Not well, right? Is that fact or theory? Fact, absolutely. Now, if I create some pressure in this part of the spine where the nerve exits to go supply the heart, because maybe you've had a trauma there, or you're sitting all day long at a PC, and that's now starting to put pressure on that part of the spine as your posture deteriorates, and it starts to irritate that nerve. Do you think maybe that heart might not work as well as it could do? Absolutely. Do you think it's possible a person might start to develop things like palpitations, even blood pressure problems, even heart conditions itself? Okay. How about, the nerves that go to the lungs here? Sometimes if you start to get interference at this part of the spine here, which affects these nerves to the lungs, a person might start to develop things like asthma, difficulty breathing, or shortness of breath. And likewise, the nerves that go to things like your stomach, your intestines. So if you've got stresses in this part of the spine here, which are now irritating the nerves because of maybe a previous car accident or a fall that you've had, or again because you're literally sitting behind the wheel of a car for 3-4 hours a day, or you're repetitively bending and lifting, and that now starts to irritate those nerves there, or it could just be because you're sitting at a PC for 10 hours a day. It might now start to affect how well your digestive organs are working. Does that make sense? Your brain constantly needs to send information through the spinal cord, through the nerves, to the organs for the organs to work well. The organs then need to send messages back via those nerves, back up the spinal cord, back up to the brain to make sure the brain is getting accurate feedback information so that the brain can make appropriate changes in those organs. Does that make sense? It requires constant communication and feedback for your body to work properly. How many of you would agree that you're going to have a much more successful marriage if the communication is good? Yeah. Absolutely, right? And when the communication is poor, what happens? Problems, okay? It's the same with your body. If the brain is not able to communicate well with the body, and if the body is not able to send accurate feedback back up to the brain, problems happen. And unfortunately, the spine is the connector between the two. So if you've got problems in your spine, it can cause all sorts of problems in here. And guess what? You can have absolutely no pain in your spine. None. Zero. Yet you've had IBS for years. Or you've had palpitations for years. Or you've had sleep problems for years. And no one's ever thought that it might be something to do with what's happening in your spine and nervous system. Does that make sense? So what can happen is when the spine starts to lose its normal alignment because of bad postural habits, traumas, stresses, etc., the joints misalign, you get soft tissue damage, inflammation, nerve irritation, right? Muscle spasm, lost imbibition of the disc, so the disc doesn't fill up with fluid like it normally does. The discs then degenerate. How many of you have heard of disc degenerative disease or ruptured disc or slip disc? You know, that's why that kind of stuff happens, but that's often way down the road, right? The person might not have any of those symptoms, but they've struggled with digestive issues for years before it gets to that stage. But then you get joint fixation. Again, can happen with no pain at all. But then you're wondering why you just can't bend as much as you used to when you were 15. But you have no pain, so you assume that there's nothing wrong with my spine, but you can only bend like this, whereas you should be able to bend right over. But no one's ever pointed out to you that that's because there's joint fixation there, because there's a buildup of things called a subluxation. It's essentially, it's an area of your spine now that is not moving properly and it's not aligned and it's causing all these problems. So just think of a subluxation as an interference in the nervous system that develops because the spine is not moving properly or not aligned. And this all results in elevated stress hormones. Because when your spine can't move properly, it constantly fires up stress to the brain. Let me explain why. And I think this is important here. So if you're kind of nodding off, now's the time to wake up, okay? So, a well-moving spine acts like a generator. The front part of your brain acts like a battery. The better the spine moves, the better the battery works. The worse the spine moves, the battery starts to go flat. This being the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain, which controls 5 key things. Number 1, it controls the autonomic nervous system, all your organs. Number 2, it controls immune system function. I think pretty important at the moment, right? Number 3, it controls inflammation, okay? So your brain now cannot regulate inflammation properly in your body, so you can now start to develop all sorts of chronic pain problems. Number 4, it also regulates hormones, which can affect sleep, mood, menopause, fertility, all that kind of stuff. And number 5, it also regulates higher cognitive functions, things like focus, concentration, memory, and learning. Which is why some of you are thinking, I've also noticed my memory's not so good anymore and I seem to get a lot of brain fog. Okay? This is why, because the spine is not moving properly anymore, so this part of the brain is no longer being charged up. It's going flat, just like a battery would. But because also when the spine doesn't move properly, this part of the brain then cannot regulate the autonomic nervous system, it also means your digestion starts to suffer. Because your digestion, would you agree, is a huge part of your organs? Yes or no? Yes. Yes. So when this part of the brain starts to go flat, your organs, including your digestive system organs, cannot function efficiently either. We also know that the better your spine moves, the more stress it inhibits in the brain. It literally dampens the stress response in the brain, which is why when you're really stressed, you want to go out for a walk or do some form of exercise. Yes? Absolutely. But if you've got areas of your spine that are stuck because you've got subluxations in your spine, you can't get those areas moving properly just by exercising because they're stuck. So it just means the remaining joints are having to move and compensate for the stuck ones. So you're only going to get maybe 70% of stress inhibition to the brain instead of 100%. Does it make sense? Okay? All right, so you want to really make sure that all the parts of your spine are moving really well so that you get maximum stress inhibition to the front of the brain. A, making you feel more relaxed, and B, reducing the brain's output of stress hormone, which then affects every aspect of your health. So what are the causes of some of these subluxations? How do we get them? Well, trauma, okay, is the obvious one. Car accidents, slips, falls, that kind of thing, okay, sporting injuries. But for some of you, you've never really had any of that because you've lived quite a sheltered life or you've just been quite careful. And so often it's actually the micro-trauma that causes more problems because it's day in, day out, sitting at the PC, 8-10 hours a day, and this, one of the worst. It's probably given chiropractors 80% of their business now. It's that bad. Okay, so we know subluxations cause a lot of issues, and we're going to talk specifically about the key ones now. Firstly, we're going to talk about chronic constipation. There's a saying, your engine is only as good as the exhaust. So if you've got issues like this, it's a problem for your engine. It cannot work properly. And for some of you, this might just be a now and then thing. But for some of you, this might be now your new normal. And you're thinking, this is not good. What are really the causes of constipation? Commonly, it's not just lack of drinking water. Yes, that's not going to help. But actually the most common is subluxations in your upper cervical spine, C1 to C3. Because these vertebrae here, in particular, have a huge impact on this part of your brain here, controlling the autonomic nervous system and gut motility through vagal tone. Your vagus nerve, which comes out of the base of your brain, upper spinal cord here, controls pretty much, in fact, the vagus nerve pretty much controls all this green stuff. See the green thing here? That's the vagus nerve. One nerve comes out of there, all right? And if that nerve is not able to communicate electrical signals properly from the brain to the gut, how well do you think your gut's going to work? How well is your gut going to heal? Not great, all right? No matter how much water you drink. And so if the gut cannot function properly, one of the most common things is it becomes very slow. Again, constipation results. L1 to L2, this area here, this is typically where the nerve supply goes to supply the ileocecal valve, which is the valve between the small and large intestine. And when that valve doesn't work well, again, slow passage of food passing through, leading to constipation. Remember, valve is just muscles that are not under your voluntary control. But those muscles are controlled by the what? The brain via the nervous system. But if the nervous system's not firing properly, how's that sphincter going to work properly? It can't. Okay? So how well is the food going to pass through your gut? Not very well. This is going to build up and build up and build up, and constipation is one of the most common results. In L5 to S3, also it affects the nerves directly to the colon itself. Sorry, L1 to L2. But L5 to S3, again, will affect low colon area. So simply by removing subluxations in these parts of the spine is dramatically going to improve brain function, control of the gut and also vagal nerve function to the gut, as well as the local nerves that go out from that part of the spine to the gut. So it's really hitting 3 areas. Irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and celiac. That's supposed to be a picture of your gut wall at a microscopic level. All these tiny little villi, okay? And your gut wall should have tight junctions and permeability, meaning things should be able to pass through the cell into the bloodstream below. You don't want loose junctions, because that leads to leaky gut. How many of you have heard of leaky gut? It's probably the #1 contributing factor to a lot of bowel issues now. And so few people know about it. Let me explain. This is your bloodstream here, okay? And these are the individual cells of your intestines, okay? Now what's supposed to happen is a normal tight junction, food passes through. But when there's a big gap, undigested food now can enter through. Bigger chunks of food, as opposed to tiny digested micronutrients of food, big chunks of food can now pass through directly into the bloodstream. How many of you have heard that broccoli is good for you? Yeah, but if you get chunks of broccoli going through these leaky junctions, do you think your body's going to like chunks of broccoli in your bloodstream? Because that's what happens when you've got these gaps, because you've got leaky gut. Because these gaps now not only are allowing undigested food particles to go into your bloodstream, but they're also allowing pathogens, okay, to enter. So how well do you think that's doing for your immune system? Because guess what? Did you know that most of your immune system is in your gut? So if your gut is unhealthy and poor, your immune system is going to be poor, guaranteed. Because this is where most pathogens have a chance to enter your body. So just getting your gut sorted out is going to really boost your immune system. Who wants a strong immune system at the moment? Now, when bits of broccoli enter your bloodstream, or any other really nice, good food, right, that you think is healthy, the problem is your white blood cells don't like chunks of food in the blood. So they attack it, and they form antibodies to it. And so eventually your body now becomes allergic to broccoli. And you think, how the heck is that possible? That's why. So the question you need to be asking is, well, how on earth, or what on earth causes leaky gut? That's what we're going to learn about now. Grains, #1 cause, common cause of leaky gut. Because, and it's particular things like wheat, rye, and barley. Bread, pasta, donuts, biscuits, anything with wheat in it. Unfortunately, they're very high in what we call lectins, okay, and gluten. Gluten is very inflammatory to the bowel, promoting leaky gut, and lectins create leaky gut as well. They essentially are toxins at a small level. And unfortunately, they now allow free passageway of food directly into your bloodstream before it's been digested properly, creating an antibody response, an immune response, leading to not just allergies, but even autoimmune disease. Things like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis even, although there are other contributing factors to multiple sclerosis, but many other autoimmune issues. Also, grains, they're very acidic. How many of you have heard that you want an alkaline body to be healthy? Okay, if you haven't, you need an alkaline body to be healthy. Lots of vegetables, basically. Vegetables are alkaline. Grains are acidic. And for most of us Westerners, we've been taught the food pyramid, right? We've been taught for decades cereals and grains is really what you should be eating the most of, then fruits and vegetables, okay, and then fats, and then pudding, right? Okay, that's the classic food pyramid, all right, which I still know is being taught in a lot of places. Now, some places, thankfully, have started to change it, and they're now saying vegetables at the bottom. Thank you. But there's lots of places where they're still teaching cereals and grains is the food that you should be eating the most of to get your energy, okay? And make sure that it is full of fiber. So don't buy white bread, buy brown bread, okay, because it's got lots of fiber. The problem is that fiber is water insoluble. It's insoluble fiber. Your body doesn't need insoluble fiber. What it needs is water-soluble fiber. It needs fruits, vegetables, okay? That is water-soluble fiber. It doesn't need brown bread, okay, and unrefined cereals and grains. Does that make sense? Because here's the irony, the more unrefined it is, the more lectin it's going to have. How many of you have heard that brown bread's better than white bread? But when it comes to lectins, do you think you're going to get more lectins from brown bread or white bread? Brown. Shock, horror. Okay, so if ever you do splash out and you just, oh, you know what, I just have to have a sandwich, eat the white bread. You're going to get less leaky gut. But the bottom line is, try and eliminate your grains as much as possible. Brown bread, white bread, doesn't matter, get rid of it. Bread's bad, because the white bread's still going to have gluten in it. It's still very inflammatory. So don't think I'm saying eat white bread, it's good for you. No, that's not what I'm saying, for the record. But I'm just saying it's highlighting some of us have been so conned, and I was one of them. I always used to think I was so self-righteous. No, I'll have brown bread, please. No, it's actually, from a health point of view, it's just as bad. In fact, it's worse sometimes when it comes to leaky gut. All right. Okay, also, low nutrient density. There's very little nutrients in bread or cereals and grains. It's just carbohydrate. It's just sugar, basically, starch. It's just energy, which is why we've got so many people who are overweight, because they're all eating like marathon runners, but then they're barely getting 5,000 steps in the day. And there's virtually no zinc, selenium, iron, boron, all the sort of really good stuff that your body needs, that your cells need to function optimally and to be healthy. All right. Omega-6 fatty acids, unfortunately, are very high in cereals and grains as well. How many of you have heard of omega-3s? How many of you have heard those are good? They are good, right? They are the opposite of omega-6s. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, which means omega-6s are inflammatory. All right, so it's a double whammy. A, you've now got lectins and gluten causing inflammation. B, you've now got more omega-6s, which causes more inflammation, not just to your gut, by the way, but to your joints, to your body as a whole, to your arteries. What do you think that's doing for your stroke risk, your heart disease risk? Yeah, okay. Okay, so lots of issues with grains. Now I get it. For some of you think, you know what, there's just no ways. I went to that talk last night and they basically said don't eat grains. And you're going to just think, how am I going to go through life? So what I'm going to say is this. Start by adding the good stuff. Don't start by removing the bad stuff. So if you just absolutely love your sandwich, or your pasta, or your pizza, or whatever it is, have your sandwich or your pasta or a pizza, but before you have that, please just pick a vegetable or a fruit that you do like, and just have a portion of that. So a stick of broccoli, a stick of carrot, use some hummus as well, whatever, just to make it actually flavorful, okay? An apple, whatever it is, it's something that you do like. All right, just find a fruit and veg that you do like. Don't try and force yourself to eat something that you don't like, because how well is that going to last? There's only so much willpower is going to do for you. You need to pick something that's sustainable. So if all your kids like is grapes, guess what? Every dinner, before they have their pizza, give them grapes, okay? Because at least they're going to get something natural, all right? Not grape juice, by the way. The whole fruit, okay? Preferably more vegetables though, because then you're going to become more alkaline. Some fruits can be quite acidic. Okay. basically we've got to start eating what grows out of the ground instead of what comes out of a factory in a box or in a packet. Okay? Our bodies were designed to eat the natural things, not the processed stuff. Okay, how many hunter-gatherers do you know of eat bread? No, right? It's not even worth their while to collect enough wheat stalks to grind up into enough flour to make a water biscuit, because they would have consumed and burnt more energy just trying to find enough grain to be able to make enough to make a biscuit. So, and you've got to remember, genetically, you're hunter-gatherers. We are hunter-gatherers. We've only been in the agricultural revolution really for the last 500 years. We've been around for thousands of years. Some of you will believe tens of thousands. It doesn't matter what your belief is, but we've been around for at least 10,000 years. And suddenly our genes, which have been normally exposed to a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, which basically all we ate was fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, and meat, that's it. Okay, that's the hunter-gatherer. That's what your genes are programmed and primed to receive. Suddenly in the last 500 years, that's been thrown on its head, and we're now shoving it full of grains, which we never used to consume. That's what birds used to eat. But there are two grains that are considered neutral. Brown rice, or white rice to some degree, right? So rice and oats. Those are your saviors for the energy you need for the day. Have a serving of oats porridge first thing in the morning. You can have it as muesli as well, that's fine. You don't have to cook it. I don't like cooked porridge, but I still like the oats with my gluten-free muesli, okay? You know, with some fruit and some dairy-free yogurt, you can have a really great meal out of that, and some oat milk or coconut milk or almond milk, right? We'll get onto the dairy part in a sec. And then you shouldn't really, though, be having more than one serving of grains per day. So if you have had oats for your breakfast, it's a good energy boost for the day. You don't need to be sitting down to now, you know, your steak and your rice and salad for dinner. You don't need the rice, all right? One serving of grains per day, preferably rice or oats. All the other grains, try and eliminate. So you never want to give up something until you stop craving it. And that's the cool thing, because the more good stuff you add, so if you're really committed to making sure you eat something raw and fresh before every meal, your body craves what it gets a lot of. So if you're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables, guess what you start craving, believe it or not? Fruits and vegetables, I promise. That's the way the biology works. If you eat hamburgers all the time, what do you think you're going to crave? Hamburgers. But if you eat a lot of salad, you're going to start craving salad. I mean, the first thing I do when I get to an airport is, where's the salad bar? Whenever you go traveling, there's nothing fresh. And I laugh when we're on the planes. You know, they call a salad pasta with about 3 tiny pieces of red pepper in it, and they call that a salad. I'm thinking, you must be joking. If people literally lived on this for the rest of their lives, we can have all sorts of massive disease problems. And we are. That's what we actually, there are people who do that. So, the more good stuff you eat, the more of that you crave, and eventually the cool thing is you stop craving the bad stuff. Test me on this. It works. You actually don't want to eat a whole pizza anymore. Because when you do, the next day, what do you feel like? Grim. Because you've been feeling so good, and now you suddenly have your pizza, and the next day you're feeling bloated, you're feeling tired, you're feeling lethargic, a little bit sort of, you know, achy in the tummy. I think, forget that, I'm not going to have a pizza the next time. Or if you do, you only have maybe 1 or 2 slices, you don't eat the whole thing. And this is the cool thing, is that your behaviors change because your desires change. You can only really change your behavior, though, when your belief system about the food that you're eating changes. So when you start to think about that bread or that sandwich or that pasta that you're eating, that is not good for me. That is actually going to increase my chance of heart disease, cancer, as well as all these IBS issues, acid reflux, heartburn, celiac disease, all the rest of it. When you start to say that to yourself every time you're eating this stuff, I promise you, you're going to not want to eat as much of it anymore, because that's the way it works. Your behavior always follows your belief system about something. But if you look at that sandwich and or that bowl of pasta and you think, oh, it's just going to make me put on a few pounds, and that's all you think, you're going to still eat it. But if you start to think, you know what, that is going to increase my chance of cancer, heart disease, my sleep's going to get poor, my energy is going to reduce, my sex drive is going to go down, all these things, the actual scientific reality of what happens when you eat that stuff, your behaviors are promised change. And I know this because I've done this with hundreds of patients, and it started with myself and my wife 15 years, maybe close to 15 years ago. And within 6 months of following the way I'm showing you how to eat, I lost 10 kgs without even trying to lose any weight. And I couldn't believe the difference. Some do's: non-starchy vegetables, some fruit, meat, poultry, fish. Just make sure it's free range, organic as much as possible, grass-fed. Okay? Or game meat, venison, excellent. Do not touch corn-fed meat ever. Okay, free range fed eggs, brilliant. Anyone who tells you eggs are bad for you, they're not reading their science. Okay, eggs are really good for you, provided they're obviously organic, free range. Natural fats, things like avocados, olive oil, coconut oil, amazing, really good for you. But the only dairy thing I would suggest you can have is butter. All right, and we'll talk about dairy at the end for those who've got time. All right. Some nuts and seeds, drink lots of water, and you want to have your pre and probiotics. Prebiotic is the food that the probiotics live on and eat. Fermented foods, really, really good for you. Things like sauerkraut, apple cider vinegar, apple sauce. Okay, those things are really, really good for your probiotics to live on. So you want to have lots of fermented foods, and also fruits and vegetables. Your probiotics, the good bacteria, need those good things to live and survive and to thrive. So what are probiotics? They're the good bacteria. The more good bacteria you have in your gut, the more protected you are against the bad bacteria, because it's a numbers game. If you've got loads of good bacteria, the bad bacteria have no chance to take hold. But if you don't have lots of good bacteria, when you do come across bad bacteria, they think, woohoo, this is a free ride. Okay, and then they multiply very quickly. You must be on a probiotic. Okay, preferably 5 different strains of bacteria, at least 15 billion per capsule. Don'ts. Okay, we talked about this. Sweetness particularly bad. Your body, that's completely artificial. All right. Bad vegetable oils, basically all those oils except the ones I've just told you about. Okay, sunflower oil, particularly bad. If you're going to cook with something, coconut oil is your best by far. By far. Not olive oil. Olive oil is not stable at high temperatures. Okay, so it's good for salads, but not to cook with. Coconut oil is your best by far. All right, or you can cook with butter, or you can cook with sesame seed oil. Legumes, dairy products, soda, juice, and alcohol. You want to get rid of that. Dairy, unfortunately, because it's pasteurized, it's superheated, it's denatured, it's got loads of proteins now that your body doesn't even recognize anymore because it's been superheated. That's the problem with dairy, but also it's a poor form of calcium. You know, there's lots of calcium in it, but it's not in a form that your body can use. Dark green vegetables are a much better source of calcium. So don't suddenly think, oh no, I'm not going to get enough calcium for my kids. Green vegetables is what's going to give you calcium, not dairy. If you think about it, who has more osteoporosis, the first world or the third world? First. Who eats more dairy? First, because it's expensive. Third world can't afford it. Third world eat vegetables, and they exercise, which gets the calcium into the bone. It's the muscle pulling on the bone that acts as the catalyst for the calcium to get into the bone. Okay, so you don't need dairy. Coconut milk, almond milk, oat milk are much better options. Okay, much better. You're going to have, your gut's going to love you for it. All right, because all those proteins that are denatured, your body forms an immune response to, an antibody response to, and it's going to increase inflammation and also all of these autoimmune issues as well. Okay, irritable bowel syndrome. Often this is as a result of chemical stresses, like the leaky gut thing we're talking about. And these subluxations that can develop in these areas through, traumas or whatever else, just prevent the gut from healing and repairing. So your gut cannot heal and repair from your leaky gut if you have subluxations in these areas. Okay? So this can really help when we clear out these subluxations in these part of the spine. It can really help your gut to start healing properly. Acid reflux often caused by abnormal spasm of the sphincter here, okay, at the top of the stomach. So your stomach is churning away there, digesting the food, and it can cause reflux of all that food mixed with acid up through the sphincter if the sphincter tone isn't tight. And what controls the sphincter? Remember, sphincter is a muscle. The nervous system controls the sphincter. So if the sphincter is not closing like it should do, you're going to get reflux and you're getting heartburn. I mean, this is probably the most common thing we can help with from a digestive issue. It's really, it's very straightforward. But yet people can be literally living on proton pump inhibitors and Gaviscon and all the rest for years, and they never told about this. Acid reflux and heartburn, typically subluxations are found in this area because that's where the nerves go to supply the sphincter of the stomach. Often this can be caused by a sporting injury or a fall or a car accident that you may have had 30 years ago that you never really fully appreciated how much of an impact it had, because these kind of symptoms might only develop 20 years later or 30 years later. Or it could just be because you had a PC all day long and it's affecting this part of your back. It's such a problem now that it's called tech neck. So people are literally on their phones so often now. We have a name for it because it causes such a common neck problem, but it's not just affecting the neck, it's also affecting this area as well, okay, which is often why it can affect the heartburn and acid reflux. Okay, so how do you know if you have any subluxations? Well, there's 4 really objective criteria that we can use. 4. Chiropractors really are the only people who are trained to detect and correct subluxations. So a huge part of our training is palpation. We train to feel the spine and feel where the spine is stuck. It's not moving properly and it's not aligned properly. But we can also see it through visualization, through your posture. Postural abnormalities are normally the earliest indications of subluxations because as the posture is off, so the nervous system is off as well. But X-ray is really one of the gold standard ways of actually checking it. All right? So, and then there are other ways as well, instrumentation, where we can do measurements of how well the brain is communicating with the body, and we can actually see how well the nervous system is functioning. Okay, so there's lots of ways we can measure and assess if you have subluxations and where those subluxations are. So 3 steps to correct the cause. Firstly, we want to break the bad habits, changing your lifestyle basically. All right, we talked a lot about that today. Add specific exercises which we would give you to specifically address your postural distortion problems. All right? So for example, if your rib cage is shifted like this, all right, what do you think a good exercise we would be giving you to do? The opposite direction, okay, to retrain the brain. No, move the spine this way and away from this way. Okay, they're called mirror image exercises. Next time you guys stand in front of the mirror, have a look. Is your rib cage shifted? Is there a big gap here versus here? Is one shoulder higher or lower? Is one ear lower or higher? Or can you see more of one ear than the other because your head's turned? Okay, these are all clues. Or when you look at yourself from the side, is there a straight line that passes through the ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle? Or are you seeing something like this? Okay, the head's coming forwards. These are all going to be causing direct stresses on your spine and nervous system. So you can check out your friends and family. And if we find any subluxations, the only way to correct this is with chiropractic adjustments. Because once the subluxation is there, it doesn't just go away on its own. Exercise ain't going to fix that. We need to specifically adjust for it to get rid of it. And that's really what we're trained, that's what we trained 6 years to do. Okay. And it's gentle. Now, so many people think we jump on people's backs, okay? Like, most of the adjustments I do is with an instrument and it's gentle. People love it, right? Even like 90-year-olds, they actually really enjoy their adjustments, okay? So don't be afraid of them, all right? There's so much science now behind it. We know exactly what we're dealing with as well because we can see where your problems are on the spine. We know the areas to focus in on and where we should keep away from. Okay, so that's why having a proper analysis is so key. So we can see exactly how best to correct you. Okay, There's this dangerous belief, though, that nothing that can be done. And hopefully after tonight, you'll now realize and leave feeling, you know what, lots can be done, absolutely. You know, maybe you're sitting there wondering, well, I wonder if I do have any subluxations and if those might be contributing to some of my digestive system problems. A great doctor friend of mine once said to me, Neil, procrastination is the thief of health. Right? We so often just put things off until eventually we're in a crisis, and now it's so far gone, it's so hard, or sometimes even impossible to restore it. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate all your time, and hopefully this is going to give you some inspiration and encouragement. All right, thank you.
Thank you.